Ken Trahan with Lenny Vangilder. It's our First NBC Bank weekend preview brought to you by First NBC Bank with 32 locations throughout the greater New Orleans area and beyond. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNOLA.com. The ruling is in. Jimmy Graham's a tight end. It wasn't much ado about nothing. This was the conclusion that I think most of us felt would be reached all along, Lenny. To get to this point was pretty interesting, and how the distinction was determined was also perhaps the most interesting aspect of this.
Well, I think you made a good point in your in your op-ed piece at SportsNOLA.com this morning. It wasn't like a situation where a judge had a bunch of cases that he could go back and refer to. Well, this is the first time we've had this kind of situation because the tight end is such an evolving position in the NFL. Really, all skill positions have evolved significantly over the last decade or so in the NFL. What you're doing with your skill players, and Sean Payton does it better than anyone in the National Football League in terms of moving these guys into different places to create mismatches. Teams on defense make decisions based on what kind of personnel they're going to put on the field based on what they see in the huddle, not where people line up. Obviously, you can't make the decision at that point. So if you think you can create a mismatch by formation, that's what you do. And as a result of that, Jimmy Graham has spent more time lined up off of the offensive line as next to the offensive line. So he's still the same player, but it's just a matter of where they're putting him. Just like Darren Sproles would line up in the slot, Reggie Bush before him. Who knows who that will be in that role this year. You see guys line up in all kinds of places. I would imagine we will at some point probably see Brandon Cooks in the backfield this year, much like teams have done with Percy Harvin in the past couple of years. So the limitations are limitless, as someone once said. When it comes to this, the end result is the game's evolving. And you can't just say because he wasn't lined up next to the offensive tackle that he's not a tight end at that point. And I think Stephen Burbank made the right call.
It's a business, and the Saints have to conduct it properly, and they did, in my opinion. And Jimmy Graham did what he felt was right, and that's fine too. There isn't fault to be assessed either way in this situation. There's simply now you accept what's happened and you move on and you try to reach the ultimate conclusion, which is what was going to happen all along, making Jimmy Graham the highest paid tight end in the NFL over a long-term deal.
Yeah, and you've got 12 days to get that done till the 15th, or he's playing the 2014 season for the tag or perhaps sitting out. I don't think we'll see the sitting out situation, but that's the choices. Get a long-term deal done by July 15th. That's what you're faced with someone who is placed under the franchise tag, or you have to wait until next year and you just play this season out under the one-year tag of what is now $7.03 million, the tight end tag.
Some have equated this to the Bobby Hebert situation back in 1990, but it's really not equitable because, first of all, that was under a different system of Plan B, where the NFL ownership and management still had the hammer. And secondly, you were talking about just over $1 million a year as compared to $7 million a year. That's a significant difference. Hebert sat out basically over $400,000, the raise he was seeking.
Yeah, and this is essentially, this whole process was a $5 million deal. That would be more than the entire Hebert contract if he'd have signed a long-term deal at that point. So, you were talking a $7 million tag versus a $12.3 million tag. That's big numbers. That's almost double.
Not to mention the fact that $7 million is more than Jimmy Graham has made in his 4 seasons in the NFL thus far.
Yeah, and, he's getting ready to break the bank some way or another. And, the question will be this when we start talking long-term deals. Is it going to be a 5-year deal? It's going to be a 6-year deal. Clearly, like you said, he wants to be the highest paid tight end in the league, which takes him north of $9 million. Will it take him north of $10 million? We don't know what's going to play out. I truly believe that they will get a long-term deal done before July 15th.
I do as well, and we also have to qualify the whole breaking the bank statement, not First NBC Bank. No. The Zephyrs, of course, at home against Round Rock and losing last night. One more game to go with Round Rock in their series with them on Thursday night before moving forward. They've scuffled a little bit of late. That was bound to happen with all the moves that were being made. Of course, Independence Day coming up, and obviously they're at this point in time in good shape and contention in a division that's wildly wide open.
It really is. And, Thursday night, a big night. Of course, the Pacific Coast League something you were a part of for a long time, does a brilliant job of making sure that every team in the league is home either July 3rd or July 4th, so everybody gets that big fireworks show. Big fireworks show out at the Shrine-Art Airline on Thursday night. Probably still a few tickets available if you want to go out and see some baseball and fireworks and, the whole Independence Day festivities, which all go together. Speaking of which, allow me one moment of opinion here. The Major League Baseball hats that they're wearing on Friday are awful, with the stars and stripes embedded in the logos and the star behind them and stuff. It's awful. Now, on the other hand, what they're going to wear for the All-Star game, I think those are outstanding. Rant over.
Everything's about merchandising. Everything's about sales. World Cup over for the United States soccer side. Jurgen Klinsmann says now that he feels like the U.S. can compete in the future in World Cup for a championship. And I think we saw how far they have to go based on their match with Belgium and how badly they were outplayed. And yet you had to be tremendously encouraged by the way they finished, came very, very close to getting the equalizer and forcing penalty kicks, which obviously could have gone either way.
Yeah, it becomes a 50-50 proposition at that point. But it's interesting, and this is a sport that, as a whole, the United States as a fan base is not incredibly knowledgeable about, not as much as they are about football, basketball, baseball. So I don't think people totally grasp what actually happened on the field. The fact that, A, they advanced through arguably the hardest of the 8 groups, but B, how exactly the game was played, and hearing some of the opinions out there that they played too defensive and that type of thing. I can't express a good opinion on that. I am by no means a soccer expert. I've watched it. I've enjoyed watching it these last few weeks, but I can't say if they didn't play the game correctly and put themselves sort of behind the 8 ball and having to constantly play defense in that game against Belgium, and similar tactic against Germany, I guess.
Well, they were facing better players and better teams. That's why they played the way they played, and were it not for Tim Howard being unbelievable in goal, that would have been a blowout. And the fact of the matter is that they were facing a better team. It's that simple. All right, NBA free agency has arrived. Visits are taking place. And, of course, the Pelicans, are they going to make a move? We saw their summer league roster. Josh Howard maybe the only surprise on that, a veteran player trying to find his way into the league still. But otherwise, when you're looking at the Pelicans moving forward, Lenny, is there anything they can do? Obviously, they need to address their small forward situation.
They do, and it's going to be interesting to see if, even though they allowed Anthony Morrow to become an unrestricted free agent, if they do sign him back. That will be one thing. The other thing will be, how do they find a way in the next 8 days, or I should say 7 days, because July 10th is, in essence, the first day of the league year, if you will. How do they find a way to get themselves below the salary cap? Are they going to just not sign people back and allow them to get to that number? Are they going to include one of their bigger salaries in a trade to, with whatever coming back at that point to enable Omer Asik to be able to fit under the cap? It's, there's a lot of moving parts in terms of what's going to happen between now and a week from now to see how the Pelicans get to the magic number.
As always, Lenny, thanks. Have a great 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, and be you here next week while I'm off taking a little bit of a break, but we'll be back with you in a couple of weeks. But while I'm gone, we got some great stuff coming at SportsNOLA.com. You can tell them about it.
I'm not going to tell you about it. You're going to have to look yourself. Watch over the weekend. See what magic appears. Yes. And I'm sure you'll enjoy it at SportsNOLA.com. Thanks, Lenny.
Yeah, and by the time you're back here Monday, they'll know all about it.
All right. Yeah. Read all about it. Look at it. Tell everybody else. All right. That's our First NBC Bank weekend preview, brought to you by First NBC Bank with 32 locations throughout the greater New Orleans area and beyond. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNOLA.com. For Lenny, I'm Kenny. Have a great 4th of July weekend, and God bless you.